Hey, this is Jaryd Krause, host of the Buying Online Businesses podcast. And in this episode, I'm speaking with Rob and Kennedy from the Email Marketing Heroes. Now, these guys have an amazing podcast and a world-class email list. Like seriously, it's very good. You guys are going to want to be on it, especially after this podcast episode. Now, in this episode, Rob, Kennedy, and myself, we talk about why you're actually leaving money on the table by not having an email list. We talk about what people actually do well when they're emailing and email marketing, what they do wrong, right? And we also talk about why it's really important to understand people's belief systems and why that's the actual trump card to doing email marketing well. We dive into the difference between people joining your email list through a newsletter and through like a resource or a content upgrade. We also talk about how often you should email your list, how long those emails should be, how to write those emails and how simple it can be writing those emails, and how to keep people engaged, which is so important in this day and age. So this is such a valuable episode. You guys are going to love it. Before we get stuck in this episode, I want to let you know that this podcast is not the only way that I can help you for free. I have my due diligence framework 2.0 version, which a lot of people have been raving about, which will help you know what to look out for when you're buying a website business. Questions that you need to be asking the seller and things you need to be finding out about the business before you actually go away and buy it to ensure you're not buying yourself a lemon. So go away and get that on buyingonlinebusiness.com/free resources. On that page, there's some other free resources you can check out there too. Let's get stuck into this episode, guys. Today's episode is brought to us by Niche Website Builders, which is a company a few of my clients are using and have used for content creation and link building services. They do everything from start to finish. So from keyword research all the way to uploading your completed article for you. We've also had Bob members buy ready-made affiliate sites built by Niche Website Builders. So if you're looking to outrank your competitors' content and build better backlinks, Niche Website Builders and I have a special deal for you. Head to nichewebsite.builders/Bob. I'll put a link in the show notes for you, but again, that's www.nichewebsite.builders/Bob. Hello, Rob. Hello, Kennedy. Thank you so much for coming on the Buying Online Businesses podcast. I told you before we hit the record button, I am actually really excited for this because we haven't really dug into email marketing, and it's something that I want to improve in my business as well. So a little bit of selfish side happening here too, but welcome to the show.
Hey,
thanks for having us.
Hey, if you can't be a bit selfish in your own podcast, why else would you have a podcast? That's why we've got ours.
It's such a great business tool, and almost every second conversation I have with somebody is like, how good is it being able to network with people and meet people? Like I probably wouldn't have ever met you guys if it wasn't for podcasting. So yeah, thanks for jumping on. Email marketing. Now, I've read that you've got on your site somewhere that email marketing is a little bit misunderstood and needs reinventing. Like, let's be honest, and I've been getting some of your emails, which is just so good to go away and check out what you guys are doing. It is old school. It's, a lot of people haven't adapted. It's 2021 when we record this. So what do you mean by it needs reinventing?
I think a lot of the problem is that what used to work doesn't work anymore. The way that when email first came around, it was a replacement for letters from your gran, wasn't it? It was a replacement for writing a letter. It was e-mail. It was electronic mail. And it's no longer that. Email is now, if we think about it as just another app that is sat on your phone, snuggled in between TikTok and Instagram, because that's where the increasing readership of email is now. Then we start to think of it no longer as the transactional thing that only serves you as the business. Like you only email people when you want to make a sale or make an offer. Really? Like if someone was doing that on their Instagram, the Instagram fairies would come down on you and not be very happy at all. So now we have to think about email as a content channel that actually delivers value. Because if the only thing you ever email people is, hey, this is the next thing you can buy from me, or here's a discount on the thing you haven't bought from me yet, or any of those kind of serve me type stuff, one-sided, one-dimensional, serve the business type stuff, then there's no actual compelling reason, there's no reason at all to open your emails. There's no reason. Whereas if you know every time you open one of our emails, you're going to receive at least a disproportionate amount of value over an offer every single time, then even if you're not in the world of, if you're not in the zone of, oh, I might buy something in that category, what this person sells, or I want to know what they're selling next, I'm being nosy. Even if you're not in any of those stages right now, you've still got another reason to open the email, which means you as a sender have a really good opportunity of giving some value and then actually not really sneaking, but actually getting an offer in front of people, even if they're not in the zone for an offer right now. So we have to switch it from it being a thing of saying, hey, do you want to buy this? As often as you want, to being a way of how do you actually give value and make it so that it's not just valuable to you as a business, but it's also valuable to the people who receive your emails. And that does two things. One, it means you make more sales and you get higher open rates. And then two, it actually means for all of us, the emails we receive are better.
Yeah. I'm so glad that you've said that, because people are just very transactional about it. Businesses are very transactional about it. And I think a lot of people tend to forget that why people even buy from a business. It's because they may have good trust in that business, and the only way to build trust is through a relationship, right? And when you're quite transactional in your email, then, or you're not really building a relationship with people, are you? You sort of, in fact, doing the opposite when you're quite transactional. You're almost burning bridges there. Crazy. So
totally.
Now I'm going to say something that you guys are going to be dumbfounded about, and I'm actually still dumbfounded about it as well, is there's so many people in my space that own content websites, which are like blogs and affiliate sites and stuff like that don't have an email list, and they're so heavily reliant on traffic. And I can't believe it. Like, I just can't believe that's they're just so heavily reliant on one single source of traffic, and they're not even optimizing themselves to build a relationship with the people that they're having coming to read their blog post. What would you say to somebody who comes to you and goes, like, I'm thinking about, doing some sort of email, adding email to my business? What would you say to them? Like, are you going to knock them over the head and say, hey, come with me? Like, you need to like really do something a bit better here. Like, talk to me about what you would say to them.
I think the really interesting thing is that if we rely on just visitors landing on our website and then hoping they buy, obviously we know that bounce rates are generally higher than we'd like them to be. Generally, people don't buy on their first visit. Generally speaking, conversion rates on everything are lower than we'd like them to be. So if we're just allowing people to bounce off the site, go off and do something else without buying from us, and we've paid or worked to get that traffic in the first place, that's just a total waste of money. So for us, we would start to try and, first of all, just put the opportunity for somebody to give you their email address everywhere. If you were to go and look at our blog, which is emailmarketingheroes.com, then immediately within a few seconds of loading, that we've got one of those awful things. They're blooming hideous, but it works really well. And it's that screen fill pop thing that like covers your entire screen and says, hey, do you want to get this awesome free thing? Now it totally interrupts the reader's ability to go and look at the thing they wanted to look at, like listen to our podcast or whatever they were there to do. And we would love to be able to turn it off, because it's blooming awful, but it works really, really well, which means that it's not giving visitors a horrendous experience of that process. So we have that. Then we have, like, in every bit of content, there's at least one, probably two boxes, opt-in boxes, where people can go and give us their email address for a different reason. Then in the widget on the right-hand side, it's all in WordPress. In the widget on the right-hand side, there's another box where people can give us their email address. If people come to our website and leave without opting in, then we retarget them through ads back to a landing page where they can give us their email address. For us, if we can get that lead, if we can get that subscriber up front, and it doesn't take a lot of work, because most of our opt-in ability on the blog is actually, I think probably all of it but one, is actually just, do you want to hear from us when we've got a new podcast? Do you want to join our daily email newsletter? We'll email you regularly. We'll tell you when there's a new podcast. Like, what people are actually opting in for is just to receive our emails. That's going to help them with, in our case, email marketing, in other people's cases, whatever they serve. And so that works really, really well. It means that people joining your list aren't just signing up to get that free lead magnet thing, and then they're going to totally disengage afterwards, because that's a big problem. They're not going to like forget who you are after 3 days. And so that works really, really well. So for us, it's everything on earth should point towards getting on the list. If you come and join our free Facebook group, the Email Marketing Show community, you'll have the opportunity, it's not a requirement, but you have the opportunity to give us your email address on the way in. So I think for us, we would generally speaking, not all the time, but generally speaking, we would capitalize on getting the email address over a sale any day of the week, even if we're putting stuff in the way that might lower initial sales, because we'll turn subscribers into customers really fast and then into repeat customers.
Yeah, with a good.
Here's a really interesting thing as well about that is when we get people to our blogs and we get people to our content or our kind of authority websites, is to get them back, we then have to invest again. We have to invest in retargeting traffic, retargeting ads. Well, email is just retargeting. That's really what it is. Somebody comes to your website, and as well as seeing your ads across other platforms to bring them back, you capture their data. And guess what? Every time I want to retarget you now, I don't have to pay Facebook and YouTube and Google and all those people. I don't have to pay anymore. All I've got to do is drop you an email. So it's like the simplest and most direct way of retargeting people right in their inbox, right on their phone. And here's the other really interesting thing. So yeah, think about it as another type of retargeting. And we have talked about that on the Email Marketing Show a couple of times. But the other thing to think about is your opt-ins, your offer to say, hey, come and join my email list, doesn't have to take away from the experience. Doesn't have to be diluting the experience of being on your website. It can actually be enhancing it by doing something that's called a content upgrade. And if you've not heard of this thing, I don't blame you. And honestly, by the way, I don't blame you if you've spent all of your time becoming awesome at traffic and getting people to your website. Well, guess what? While you were doing that, I was figuring out email marketing. So I'm terrible at traffic. So I totally understand why you don't have an email list. I 100% get that. It's just a different skill. But imagine if you plug this thing in as well.
Yes.
So what you can do is this content upgrade thing. And that is someone's reading your article, and it's probably a detailed article because you've made it really rich, you've made it really engaging, you've made it really attractive and discoverable. You've done all the clever stuff that you understand that, frankly, I just know the words. I don't even know what they mean, right? So what you can then do is say to somebody, hey, would you like a visual summary of this entire article so that it's easier and faster for you to remember, digest, and implement? If you would, give us your email address and we'll send you the infographic, the worksheet, or whatever. So now you're not taking away from the person's experience, you're helping them implement, you're helping them get action out of it. If you've got like an affiliate e-commerce type reviews blog or something like that, you might have like a quick summary of all of the top 5 TVs in 8K right now as a nice PDF that they can quickly download and show to their partner, for example, because we know people have to make decisions together on larger purchases. So is there a way you can use your email marketing, your list building element of your email marketing, as a way of enhancing the experience and making it easier and faster for people to implement what it is you're driving people to in the first place? So some really strong and compelling reasons to do that, I think.
Yeah, you'd be silly not to. Like you said, it's they've got one leg of their business really, really good, but they're missing this total other leg, which can, add so much value to the business. And there's so many, what both of you guys have just said, there's so many questions and routes that we could go down. I want to talk about what you said with the retargeting. It's free retargeting. I tell this to my clients all the time. It's like, look, you've got to get them to your email list so you don't need to keep spending money on these platforms. And even if you did have them on your email list, whilst you do some advertising as well, people feel like you're just everywhere. And that's what people have said to me is like, dude, like you don't go away. It's because you know that you can track them in many different places and you can be in front of them. And that's what you need to do when we've got social media that's so, just consuming our attention all the time. We need to be in multiple places, and that, if you're not having email, you're not there, you're not covered. So I wanted to talk about the opt-in, like the content upgrade, or I call it a free resource, or versus the hey, just join my newsletter. And this is something that I'd never really thought about before coming across you guys, was that the level of relationship that you can build with somebody who opts in for, say, a content upgrade / free resource, as opposed to just, hey, join my newsletter. Because I was almost thinking, hey, is it just lazy and old school to just tell people to just join your newsletter? And does it even work anymore? And from what you guys are saying, it sounds like you're more likely to have a better relationship with them if they do join the newsletter, because they're wanting your content more, right? Would that be right?
I think if you just say join my newsletter, no one wants a newsletter. What they want is solutions to a problem.
Yeah.
So what we say on our blog and on the way in the Facebook group and stuff is we say, would you like a daily dose of tips, inspiration, and ideas to up your email marketing? If you would, give us your email address. So we don't really call it a newsletter because I think people imagine that's that kind of thing you made at school in Microsoft Publisher, and it was like those threefold things, and it all had terrible clip art in it with funky fonts and all that sort of terribleness. So we don't really call it a newsletter, but it kind of is. And I think the reason it works is, one, most of us put off building our email list because of a few reasons. And one of the reasons, I think we'll come on to the second one later, but one of the reasons is creating this lead magnet, this resource, this thing that people... Imagine if you didn't have to bother working out what that thing was. It's really valuable to do that, and it's really valuable to have some really good resources, 100%, and we have many, and we teach people many. But in actual fact, the problem with that, there's a big disconnect from someone joins your list to get, I don't know, we've got a thing where we give away a 4-day flash sale campaign. So it's a 4-day email campaign that makes sales very quickly. And yes, you join our newsletter to get that, but then as soon as we give you that PDF, which is instantly, the relationship, the transaction, and the expectation of our relationship from the setup is over. You've paid for it, and remember, they have paid for it with a valuable thing, which is their email address. And in return, they have purchased the PDF. And now the transaction, the relationship, the indebtedness, psychologically speaking, is fulfilled. There is nothing else. So when you email people after that, you have to do a little bit of bridging in order to set up the expectation that you're going to continue to help them. I think many of us have received people trying to help us when we don't want help. Those people who DM you on LinkedIn? Those people? You know what I'm talking about, right? Hey, I can help you. I don't have a problem. It's okay.
They just send you free links and spam you with,
Oh, yeah, absolutely. All the time. So, yeah, exactly. Eye rolling. So what we have to do at that point is remember that, yes, if the opt-in reason is, do you want to hear from us every single day? As Rob said, then you've got to email them every single day with a tip. And because the content you're going to give them is actually valuable and not just sales messages, then that's a great thing, and that can nurture your relationship. But then if you do have the more traditional lead magnet, the resource that they opt in for, they give you the email address for, then what you have to do is something, we have a thing called a getting to know you sequence. When someone first joins your email list, you want a 4-day email series, one day after another, which just sets up expectations, sets up your authority, your leadership, your credibility, sets up the relationship, sets up expectations, so they know that after this 4 days, you're going to email them every day, and they're going to absolutely love it. They're going to look forward to it, and they're going to get value from it. So you do have to do that bridging bit with something like a getting to know you sequence. So there's those two different ways, and you should be doing both. Absolutely be doing both, because some people want a resource and some people don't want a resource. They want to sign up for your newsletter, and they'll hit different people at different times on different days, depending on what their mood is and what their need is and what their focus in their business is right now.
What kind of makes up a good email sequence? I know that's a very broad question, and it'll open up some avenues for us to dive down. I'm excited to open that can of worms.
Yeah, so one of the things we really need to avoid is that somebody comes into your business and worst case scenario, you don't have the getting to know you bit, which means they now just start receiving whatever you happen to be sending at the time. Now let's for a minute look at that from the subscriber's perspective. As Kennedy said, they've come along, they've put their email address in, either to join your newsletter, or this is particularly worse if it is for some kind of free resource. They put their details in and you send them that within a few minutes. And then immediately you happen by sheer chance at that time to be on day 4 of some big launch promotion. And so you send them an email saying, hey, by the way, I've had loads of questions about my super duper whooper widget. It's closing tomorrow. So you probably want to have a look at, here's all the questions I've been asked and here's the answers to them. And that person's like, the what now? Like who's this and what's going on? Like it makes no sense because there's no context. And email marketing without context is just spamming people. Like it doesn't make any sense, not legally in the sense of the word spam, but it sort of is. And so what we need to do is we need to make sure that we always have context for what we do. So we have a couple of things. The first thing that we have in place is the getting to know you sequence that sets up who we are and why we're emailing and why that's good for them. Running alongside that, incidentally, if we're giving away some kind of lead magnet thing, we also put people through, in our case, a 4 or 5 day delivery sequence. Because if you actually ever bother to track the numbers on it, the number of people who opt into your list and then don't go and find the email to download the thing, like that number is much lower than you would expect it to be. Even though they really wanted it at the time, the excitement, and bearing in mind, most of our landing pages set it up so that somebody who's less online educated might think they're going to just click the button and it's going to instantly download the thing, and then we email it to them because that's a better route. Well, now they're like, the excitement wanes a bit and they've found something else to go and look at, and there's another video of a cat somewhere that they can go and watch instead. And so it's really important for us that we actually guide them through that process. So over the course of 4 days, alongside the getting to know you sequence, we run another chain of emails, 1 email per day, that basically encourages them to go and download the thing that they wanted. But it's not like a pestering. It's not like, hey, you didn't download it yet. You didn't download it yet. Click here to download it. It's each day leads with like something interesting about the thing. So by the way, on page 3 of this little workbook, we're going to walk you through this process, and that's going to help you to do this. And this is why that's good. Go and download it here. And we take them out of that sequence when they click. So we're basically rewarding people for clicking early. If they click straight away, we don't need to keep bothering them about it. If it takes them 3 or 4 days to click, then they're going to go all the way through that sequence. So that really helps. But once we get that out of the way, the next thing that we want to do, and we think about email campaigns as being a bit like train carriages. If you imagine a train, which is obviously made up of all the individual carriages, at any point they can just uncouple 2 carriages. They could swap them around. I don't know why they would do that in a train, but they could take one out and they could.
Hey, if you want first class in the middle, you know.
Oh, exactly. So you can swap stuff around really easily. And so we think about our email campaigns as being a bit like that. Some of them might be long and complicated. Some of them might be short and less complicated. But either way, that's how it works. And so now what we do is we have people go into a sequence of train carriages that basically sell our core products, our core offers, the things that we know are going to be best for them at this point. And they sell it using a really logical sales conversation. In other words, nobody's going to join our list and immediately receive some random email that doesn't make sense to them because it's lacking context. But actually, the very first campaign we usually run is the thing we call the overture campaign, because it's the one that comes first. And it basically sets it up. It's like an introduction. It sets people up to know this is what the product is. This is what it does. And it follows a very logical sequence of saying, this is what the product does. Okay, great. This is why that's good for you. Okay, excellent. This is what other people think about it. Okay, good. This is some of the questions you might have, and it guides them through this process. And at the end of that, some people will buy and some people won't, and the ones who don't, well, they just carry on to the next train carriage, which sells that thing but from a different angle. So maybe we wrap it up with some sort of content first. We have a campaign called the Black Widow, so maybe it uses a bit of content and then segments people who are particularly interested and sells it to them a little bit harder. So we run people through this sequence of train carriages, and at the very end of that, when they get to the end of, so ours probably takes about, it depends, because it's slightly behavioral. If you click on everything straight away, you'll whiz through it much faster than somebody who like clicks on the last email in every sequence. But as short as probably 3 weeks, as long as maybe 5 to 6 weeks. So in other words, when you join our list, unless you buy everything straight away, for the first up to 6 weeks, you're actually not going to receive our real daily emails, the ones that we're actually sending out live every day. But you also won't know the difference because it feels like you're getting what you were promised. It feels like those daily emails because it is daily, and because it has the same feel about it, we use a very similar structure for those emails. But what it means is that we're presenting it from a very logical position. And when somebody gets to the end of the train carriages, they now know exactly what our stuff is. They know who we are, they know what we sell, they know how we write, which means that when we talk about like the league of email marketing heroes, our membership, they now know what that is because they went through a very logical A, B, C, D, E explanation of what it was when they first came in. And that gives every customer, first of all, I mean, we've seen massively higher conversions by implementing this as a strategy first, and we shortcut the time it takes us to turn a subscriber into a customer quite dramatically.
Amazing. So there's so much in there, like I said before, to unpack. So let's see if we can like decompartmentalize a little bit of that. When people, I know there's people that, like you said, they'll just join and they'll get them to join their email list as business owners, and they'll just be like, hey, check out this, check out this product. It's going to be sold. You're never going to be able to get access to this ever again if you don't buy this in 35 seconds. Just creating this mad FOMO. Like, what a ridiculous thing to do to somebody, and how, sleazy and disgusting does that feel? When you get into an email sequence, it's going to cause so much unsubscribe straight away. So what else are some of the things that people kind of do wrong when they're, are they selling too hard again? Or like, what are some of the things that people generally have mixed up in their mindset around the emails that they send? What are they doing wrong mostly with their emails?
I think a lot of us, what we tend to do is we look at email marketing from our perspective, and then secondly, from the tech perspective of what you can do with your email marketing platform. Instead of what we do, which is we really like to look at the customer perspective. Look at that customer's journey through these train carriages of what is it they're experiencing? What do they know? And the biggest thing, like, if you forget really good copywriting, what are the really good buzzwords? We get asked this all the time because our background is in psychology and we teach psychology-driven email marketing. So one of the things we have to do, if you just strip all the magic words of all that stuff away, is just focus on this question, and that is, what are the beliefs that each individual person has to have before they can actually buy anything from me or buy this thing from me? And that is beliefs about themselves. That's really important because people forget that. What do they need to believe about themselves? What do they need to believe about me, the person who's telling them about it? And what do they need to be able to believe about the product? And what do they need to believe about what other people will say about them having bought the product?
Wow.
And it's really important that we think about those things, because if you're selling a high ticket item like electronics, or if you're selling even a small thing of like, what did you do today? Oh, I bought this thing, or what's this thing on the credit card statement? We are justifying that to ourselves, to other people, and to maybe to businesses or to partners. We need to be able to think about all of these things. And before those things are properly understood and then powered by some kind of desire, an urgent desire to solve a problem, fix a thing, be seen as better, or whatever it is, then we can't make a sale. So before we make any email campaign, we always go, okay, this is what we're selling. What are all the beliefs the person has to have? So, and we do that before we come onto any podcast interview, when we're sitting down, just as an example of talking about podcasting, is when we sit down and every month and we batch record the email marketing show, our podcast, and we sit down and we look at, okay, this month, we're going to be doing 3 episodes because we alternate. One episode's Rob and I talking, another episode is a guest, and we alternate throughout the month. We just sit down and we say, okay, we're going to talk about this thing. What are all the beliefs everyone needs to have around this thing in order for them to really understand it and really grasp the ideas? And it's the same with today. What are all the beliefs you need to have in order to understand you need to do this thing? Everything comes back to our human hardwired belief systems and making sure that we build upon them and don't try and change them. And that's a big mistake that I think a lot of marketers make, is they push really hard and it's seen as pushing. The only reason it's seen as pushing is because you're trying to change someone's belief. It's very difficult to change someone's beliefs. We've studied how cults are built, and getting people to escape from these cults is very, very difficult, and they become damaged for such a long time because beliefs are really difficult to break. They have these beliefs that if they leave, all of these terrible things happen. Superstition. My mum won't cross somebody on the stairs. She won't do anything on Friday the 13th. She thinks it's bad luck if you do this or that. Beliefs are really hardwired into every single thing that we do, and we are building on beliefs every single day. So build on beliefs. Don't try and change people's beliefs.
That's great. So basically what you've just done there in that explanation is like you've brought people into the facts, like the beliefs that we already believe, and that connects you with your audience and builds a relationship because they end up going, oh, okay, that person is explaining something that I already believe to be true, and that gets them across you build that bridge that way. Is that right?
Exactly that.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Guys, go back and re-listen to that part of the episode. Actually, just re-listen to the whole part of the episode, because I think if people just get that part right, Kennedy, that the rest can fall into place a bit easier?
I think there's two things really. If you take two things away from this episode, one of them is like build beliefs. Don't worry about the intricacies. Like I'm dyslexic and I send an email every single day, right? And I think people create these beliefs in their head that they can't do things. And if I can do this stuff, you can absolutely do this stuff. Don't worry about the individual words or the clever tricks. None of that stuff works. That's when you get into this sneaky stuff. There are some really good little specific tactics that we have seen and we measure and we know work, absolutely. And we teach them inside of our membership. We teach them inside of our Facebook group. All that stuff, great. That's one thing. Right? The other thing is make sure you create context. The thing that Rob was talking about, the train carriages, literally changed our business, rescued our business from when we were at the brink of losing it. No kidding. Literally had bills we couldn't pay. It was horrendous. Just over a year ago, we were about to lose the business and we installed this concept of train carriages to create context for every single new subscriber that comes into your business. And now what happens is people buy stuff. Why? Because they know what you're selling. It's like magic. And it's actually really simple.
I'm so glad that you said, like, you talk about like the tactics and the wording and the gaming of it all that people try and do, especially in our industry of like online businesses, people trying to play games against algorithms and Google and get quite tactical. And it's like, it's not a very, in my opinion, I don't feel that as a very holistic and organic approach. And what you mentioned about, understanding people, understanding their beliefs and just helping them in a more organic way, you can strip away all that tactical stuff. Because I could ask questions right now about like, well, how often should you actually email your list? And I guess that's a bit irrelevant when if people are loving your emails and they're believing in you, you've built a great relationship with them, why couldn't you just email them every single day, right? Like you guys are doing. Is there some other common beliefs that people have around email, like don't email them every single day or you should email them every single day? What are some of these common beliefs that people have around email marketing that are just not serving their audience?
There's one really interesting one that people think that if they email too much, then people are going to get annoyed and report emails as spam. Or on a more technical front, that the email platforms are going to just start considering it spam and they're going to be more likely to put you into the junk folder or into the promotions tab, that kind of thing. And actually the reverse is true. It's a bit like a credit score. So with a credit score, if you never have credit, like if you go around your life and you never get a credit card and you never borrow finance on anything, if you never do that, your credit score, you'd never have a chance to get one. So your credit score is actually not great. You might think it is because you've never borrowed any money, but actually it's terrible. And the same thing applies to email. If you don't email people very much, then two things happen. One, on a human, emotional, psychological level, if you join my list today and I send you a couple of emails now just to get you going, and then in like a month's time, I might send you one, and then maybe a few weeks after that, you'll very quickly forget who I am and why you joined my list in the first place. And that means that when I suddenly go, I'm in product launch mode, I better do an email campaign. And now suddenly I go really heavy and do an email campaign. You're like, whoa, who's this guy and where's he come from? Like, why am I suddenly being bombarded with this massive barrage of emails? And suddenly that's where you're more likely to hit the spam button or delete. On a technical front, what's actually happening is that you're not giving Gmail and all that lot a very good opportunity to see how good your emails are. And what's happening is that when you send out that sudden slew of emails, you've now got loads of people who are engaging with your emails in the wrong way. So they're unsubscribing, reporting as spam. And so most of the evidence, that's like missing all of your payments on the credit thing. That's like most of the evidence that you're building with the big email platforms, and they all know stuff, and there's only really 4 of them have the majority of the market. They're now learning, okay, great, this person's emails, they're not great. That nobody really wants them. Lots of people are disengaging. Lots of people are unsubscribing. Lots of people are reporting as spam. So whilst unsubscribes in their own right are not a terrible thing, like we should encourage people to unsubscribe if they're not interested in continuing to hear from you. If all that happens is you do a bunch of emails every now and then when it suits you and your business, that's what's going to make it damaging for you as a delivery point of view. If somebody joins your list and you email them every day and they love it, and we get replies literally 100% of the time every day. We even email 3 365 days a year, even Christmas. So on Christmas Day, we text each other about halfway through the day when a sale came in. Somebody joined our membership on Christmas Day, which wouldn't have happened if we didn't send an email. So we send emails all the time. It's permanently happening. We get replies 365 days a year saying, thank you for this email. I needed to hear this today. We got one a couple of months ago from a lady called Ruth, who'd just been made redundant at work, just found out her job doesn't exist anymore. And we sent out an email selling something, and she replied saying, thank you so much. This made me smile today. I needed this because I've just been made redundant. So we get replies all the time. And that only happens when you do it that often. So yeah, emailing more often doesn't damage your ability. As long as you do it right and you do it in the way that people want to hear from you, then it definitely gives you an added advantage in that department.
So good. I'm going to plant a little seed here because I was reading one of your emails today, and there was the Coke joke that you guys have. I'm not sure if you remember the Coke joke that you're about.
Oh, it's in the Get to Me sequence.
Yeah. So guys, I thought it was funny because it depends on where you're from and what your background is and all that sort of stuff. And it can mean different things to different people. But the humor that you guys bring to your emails is great. And it's a lot of people don't have that in their emails, and it builds that connection. So guys listening, why I said I'm going to plant a seed is if you want to know what the Coke joke is, you need to get on this guy's email list and check it out because it's great. Now, I'm worried about like Gmail and all these other people, or those 4 other providers seeing my content as spammy as well, because what I find is that sometimes people will opt into something, they'll get something, and then they'll just leave straight away because they've got that thing and unsubscribe, and that could go, oh, okay, cool. People don't find this valuable. They're unsubscribing straight away. So I guess that bridging of, getting people to download your resource or get your resource is absolutely vital right at the start. Would you say that's the most critical time to be engaged with somebody when they join your list?
I think there's a couple of things. I think the first thing is they first join your list. You have to deliver them very quickly the thing they asked for. And you have to not be clever or smart or cute about it. Tell them in the subject line, this is the thing and this is the download link for it, so they know what it is. And then set up the expectations for what's going to happen next, which is tell them in that email, we're going to email you every single day and we're going to give you more help with this. But then it goes on to the next thing, which is how do you maintain that relationship so that they want to continue opening those emails? And we talked earlier about making sure you give more value than you extract. And it's sort of, if you imagine like a bank of goodwill, if all you do is email everybody every day saying, here's the thing to buy, here's the thing to buy, here's the thing to buy, you're depleting, you're withdrawing from the bank of goodwill. You've got to make sure you increase it. And a lot of people talk about what percentage of emails should I be doing where it's content and value, and then how many of those should then also have an offer in them? How do we plan that out?
Amazing question.
And yeah, I mean, it's an interesting thing to think about. And the thing is, we sat down about this and thought, we need to be able to email these things quickly because we want to email every day. What we don't want to do is have to sit at the beginning of every month and plan 28 to 31 emails in one go. I can tell you now, we do not plan, I'll give you a caveat to that in a second, but we do not plan our emails. We do not plan our emails. This is my routine for sending an email. Every day I get up at 5:30 in the morning. I get out of bed and I go over to the kettle and I switch the kettle on to make my first cup of tea of the day. While I'm doing that, I flip open my laptop and I type an email. Before the kettle is boiled, which takes 4 minutes and just over 4 minutes, 4 minutes 20, something like that. I did time it once, I can't remember what it was, 4 minutes or something. I have typed the email, and that email contains value, and it contains an offer 100% of the time, and I have hit send before the kettle has boiled. And the only way that's possible is if I don't have to think and plan too much, because thinking gets in the way of doing all the time. Rob has a really good saying he talks about where he says, people don't have a problem doing email marketing, they have a problem getting their fingers on the keyboard. And it's 100% true. And so this is the strategy that we use. You know what you're currently selling. And for us, most of the time, it's our membership, the league. Sometimes it might be that we're saying, hey, our offer might be, come and join our free Facebook group, the Email Marketing Show Community. And that'll be our call to action with a little link to the Email Marketing Show Community. Or it might be, hey, go and listen to our podcast, the Email Marketing Show. Whatever your offer happens to be at that moment, it doesn't matter. We already know that. We don't have to plan that because we know that day we're going to write it. Because we don't batch create our emails. We send them in real time. So this is the format we use. Well, this is one of the formats we use. And this is basically, we start off by thinking about a story. And the story has nothing to do with the thing we're selling. Nothing at all. It's not about email marketing. So last week, Rob sent an email about the fact that he got a new mattress and it didn't come in a big mattress-shaped box. It came in a tube because it was vacuum packed. He sent one the week before about the fact he got a new doorbell, and he put it on the door, but nobody uses the doorbell. They still knock on the door. I sent one this morning about the fact I was giving a presentation. I don't know if you saw this, Rob. I was giving a presentation on Monday, and there was a guy shaving his head while watching the presentation. So these things have got nothing to do with the things we're selling, right? They're just stuff that's happening. And they could be boring things. They could be mundane things. They could be the fact that we did this podcast. We had to get up early because our host was in Australia. So we got up early. And then that could be the story. Everyday things that you tell people about in your life, that you think about. Stories. That's one piece of value. People love stories. We've been hearing stories all of our lives. If you look at the science around stories, it's fascinating. Well, I'm obsessed with it because stories literally occupy more of people's brains because they allow them to emotionally engage. I could go on for hours about it, right? So tell a story. The next part of the email, so I type the story, and by the way, the entire email will be less than 200 words.
Perfect.
There is nothing pretty in these emails. There's no logos, there's no icons, there's no pictures, there's no nice template, nothing. So it's tell the story, then I transition into a lesson. What is the moral of that story that your audience can learn something from? So my story this morning was, what was my story? Oh yeah, so the story this morning was the guy shaving his head. The lesson was the people you're engaging with are really busy. They've got a lot on their mind. They're organizing events. They're doing this. They've got to have haircuts. They've got all these things to do. They're really busy. That's an interesting lesson. Mm-hmm. So now there's two pieces of value in that email. There's the story. That's valuable because entertainment is valuable. And they're emotional. Secondly, there's the lesson. There's another piece of value. And then we transition into an offer. And that is, if you want to know how to grab people's attention and make sure that you get the attention you need so you can make offers to your audience, make sure you come and join our membership, the League of Email Marketing Heroes, where we show you exactly how to do that. That's it. Story, lesson, offer. Every single day. And all you have to do is when you're in the shower that morning, think about what was the least boring thing that happened yesterday? And then start writing that story. Because at the moment we write the story, the very moment we're sitting typing that story, neither Rob or I have any idea how that is even a lesson related to our audience or how we're going to transition it in the offer. Just write the story.
I think that's such great advice. I used to come up with stories, I try to write like 2 stories every week about something interesting that's happened in my life because I was doing a copywriting course and I had in my head that I wanted to know what I was going to like, how I could tie that story in to what I'm actually selling. And I'm glad that you take these barriers away. Like you said, you're saying, Rob, about the keyboard. People don't have a problem email marketing, they have a problem getting their fingers on the keyboard. You know, it's in this great book by James Clear, Atomic Habits. You have to have like something that's so simple. If you just put your fingers on the keyboard every single morning, you're going to type something. And it doesn't need to be, I guess, it doesn't need to be those big, long emails that go for like 1,000 words, because let's face it, people aren't going to wake up in the morning and they're checking their social media and then they check their emails. They're not going to sit on the toilet reading something that goes for 3, 4, 5 minutes, right? Like we just don't have the capacity for that in our lives. So is that true, or am I just, I'm just making something up? Is it true that we should have our emails short and sharp and simple?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. We misjudged for ages. We used to talk about this really flippantly and just say, oh yeah, they're probably like, I don't know, maybe 500 words an email or something like that. And it was a number pulled out of thin air. It wasn't like we'd sat and counted them. Anyway, one day Kennedy just grabbed one of the emails that I sent to our email marketing heroes list and just did a word count on it. And it was exactly, should get a medal for this, it was exactly 175 words on the nose. And so typically they're like less than 200 words is now the new number that we've sort of figured out, because they're all about the same length most of the time. Occasionally they just go on a little bit longer, but most of the time they're as long as that.
And occasionally they're shorter too. I mean, there are some of our emails, like in an overture campaign, which are like probably less than 30 words.
Right. And that's the thing, as you say, people are busy, right? And they just need to be able to consume really fast. The other interesting thing about just putting your fingers on the keyboard every day and just writing something is you don't have to click send on what you write. So a lot of the time, one of the things we often tell people to do when they start writing a story is they'll start with the sort of mundane setup of the story. So it'll be, last Monday, I had to go to the shops. So I had to make sure I had my mask, and I had to make sure I had my hand sanitizer, and I had to make, because we were living in a pandemic, and I had to make sure I do this, this, and this. And then when I got there, the security guard looked at me a bit funny as I went into the shop. Maybe he doesn't like red hair. And like the story's not starting anywhere interesting.
Yeah.
Whereas if the story starts with crash, the supermarket trolley flew into the wall. The security advisor looked at me. All we've done is we've written the same story, just deleted the first 3 paragraphs because they don't add anything. But it's a good way of getting warmed up. Like, so before you exercise, you'll do your lunges and your whatever else you do before you exercise. You want to do the same thing. And that's a really good way. Just remember, you don't have to send what you write. You just have to have a go.
Yeah, that's a great point, is you need to have that hook, right? You need to hook people into the story at the start. It's the same as if you're recording a video for YouTube or writing, a lot of people listening to this write articles for their content sites, or anything on your site. You need to hook people in and then give them context. And I think that's great. I just want to say, seriously, it's been so good to talk about email marketing. Like, I've learned so much. I'm sure everybody else has. And for those who are listening that don't have an email list, like, get newsletter set up and say, hey, do you want some tips? And start practicing that, that actionable step is just start practicing, over the next month, writing a small, less than 200 word email, and you'll have some emails in the kitty right there. So guys, thanks so much for coming on. Where can I send people to find out more about your podcast and what you guys are doing at the Email Marketing Heroes?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few different places. I mean, the first thing is, come and think about, if you're thinking about how do I apply this to my business? Because all of our businesses are different. Your style's different, and what you're trying to promote is different to everybody else. We totally get that. So the best place to come and join is our free Facebook group. It's called the Email Marketing Show Community. And on the way in to that group, it'll pop up and ask you some questions. And one of those questions is, would you like to receive our daily emails? And if you'd like to see us actually doing the things that we talk about, where you'll go through our getting to know you sequence, our overture sequence, then you'll receive our daily emails and our stories. You'll hear the Coke joke we talked about before. Then just pop your email address in there. But I want you to know that it's not a necessity for you to join the group. You don't need to join our email list. It's optional. We think you'll really like it, but it's a really great place to come and hang out. So that's the best place. Also, if you like podcasts, and I have a feeling you do, then do come and check out our podcast. It's called The Email Marketing Show. It has the world's most annoying jingle for any podcast ever, where Rob and I talk about email marketing every single Wednesday.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Everybody listening, I just want to say a massive thank you for listening as well. Before we go, I want you to think of 2 to 3 people who own an online business and do them a massive favor and share this podcast episode with them, because chances are, even if they don't have an email list or they do have an email list, there's going to be so much to learn from this podcast episode. So share this with them. Go to the show notes and check out Rob and Kennedy. They're amazing at what they do. So thanks again, guys, and I'll see you on the next episode.